other thing and dash are you saying you are wasting your time with this? Ellipsis points and so on. Look at it as the best kept secret ever and dash for now. Rumors and even evidence of it abound, but no official statements or photos are shown at school, university, or primetime TV. Actually, that is not true. See the case of Admiral Richard Evelyn Byrd, U.S. Navy, and many other sober people further down the hollow earth path. The ultimate did you know that ellipsis points never mind. Here is a list of the wide range of evidence which we will now present to the unbelieving outer earth visitors who want to know why they have never heard about the hollow earth before and feel that they have been somewhat left out. Concepts. 1. All planets are spheres, not only the Earth, the Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, the Sun itself too. Standard planetary formation theories. How were they formed? What made them spin? And still does. Completely woo-woo. 3. A massive planetary body with an incandescent and progressively cooling core would crack into pieces, while cooling and shrinking. 4. Gaseous planetary bodies like the Sun and the large planets of our solar system cannot generate a magnetic field, but they all have one. 5. All the solar system's outer planets emit more energy than they receive from the Sun. 6. A spinning planetary body in formation has zero gravity in its center, so mass does accumulate where gravitational and centrifugal forces are balanced within the area of the spinning matter, and that form would be a sphere with openings at the top and bottom, like a hurricane of matter in space and dash not, as a solid body with a solid center, the center has zero gravity. 7. If planets were formed from cosmic dust which started to condense into a body like Earth, then the angular momentum would still continue to increase, which it doesn't, and dash the Earth's spin is steady, not slowing down or speeding up. 8. Larger planets with more mass should spin more slowly than smaller planets with less mass and dash, but they don't. The largest, Jupiter, spins a lot faster, once every 10 hours, than Mercury, which is just a tiny fraction the size of Jupiter and needs 58 Earth days for one spin around its axis. General observations. Both Earth and Moon ring hollow for hours after struck with meteorites, as measured by seismic stations on Earth and on the Moon. Earthquakes do not occur deeper than 450 miles, but down there, the supposedly molten magma would not create and release friction by earthquakes, and dash a viscous or molten mass equalizes tension. It does not accumulate tension, because it is flexible. Gravity experiments in mine shafts show that the balls pointing to the center of gravity point away from the center of the Earth, instead of towards it, as measured by the distance at the top and bottom of trolley balls hanging from very long wires into a mine shaft. Ellipsis points on ellipsis points with Inspector Klaus say observations at the Earth's poles. Welcome to Mr. Wu's pole anomalies. The temperature, as one gets past a certain latitude, increases as one approaches the poles, which is not supposed to happen. Arctic, and in less cases, Antarctic, explorers have reported in their ship's logs to have taken off their climate gear. This was before vortex. Floating flora and fauna near the northern polar region's ocean, seeds, flowers and trees are found at latitudes where none should be, and they are often very fresh, not decomposed from many months of floating in the ocean currents that might have brought them from far away. Spiders, bees, mosquitoes, moths and flies were found once past the cold and icy region below the North Pole. Northern Greenland is the mosquito capital of the world. Many bird species in the northern hemisphere migrate north and dash before winter. Birds in the southern hemisphere migrate south in their winter, to and dash. If the poles are the coldest regions, it makes no sense, but flocks of millions of birds like the hawk have been observed doing this, and they must have a very good reason. Presence of seal, hawk, goose, seagull, duck, rabbit, wolf, fox, bear and other large animals at extreme northern latitudes. The exploration of Antarctica is much more scarce compared to Arctic explorers. The origin of icebergs around the North Pole. They are made of frozen sweet water and dash not frozen salt water. There is little, if any, precipitation of rain or snow, sweet water, in the polar regions. Salt water freezes to sea ice at low enough temperatures. There is no supply of sweet water to explain the existence of icebergs, which are hundreds of feet high, up to hundreds of miles long and dozens of miles wide. Icebergs around the North Pole are colored by red pollen of an unknown plant, as well as dust and dash a lot of it, including earth material on top of them. Massive wave-like or tidal movements in the Arctic polar region have been witnessed by many explorers. Waves which cracked and moved the ice floes around the explorers' ships in a very, very major way that had their hair stand on end. Floating and deposited driftwood, including exotic species, is extremely abundant and sometimes stacked 15 ft 5 and high along the coasts in the polar region of Spitsbergen and Greenland, up to 86 degrees latitude north. Mammoth, elephant, woolly rhinoceros, hippopotamus, lion and hyena have been found in the ice from the North Pole that is also deposited on the coasts of Siberia. Entire forests of mammoth ivory have been found there. The stomach content of frozen mammoth has been found to contain tropical and digested plants that do not occur anywhere in the north and polar region. Supposedly, the last time the mammoths were clomping around was during the last ice age. Children, not the Pixar animation films 1, 2 or 3, but many were found with their frozen meat good enough to give it to the sled dogs in Siberia for dinner or late lunch. Children, note from the editor, if these mammoths came out of inner earth via the huge freshwater rivers that flow outwards and freeze as they pass the northern polar opening, then the theory of a massive crustal shift of the earth which supposedly transported mammoths who had been peacefully chomping on tropical plants way up north into days, causing them to insta-freeze as a result of a polar reversal, as one argument. Less, see Charles Hapgood, Maurice Cotterill, Patrick Gerald, Lifhi and others. Instrument anomalies at the Earth's poles. Approaching the magnetic pole, the compass needle points down towards the dial and edge and passing the horizon, where the surface or Earth curves inward at the poles, like an apple into its center, only much more pronounced, and the compass needle starts pointing up, behaving now like a vertical and not a horizontal instrument. The magnetic North Pole is not a specific point. It is a large area around the geographic North or South Poles, which do not exist as solid points on the surface. They are points in empty space. Magnetic and geographic poles have a different axis. As you know, the compass stops working in a horizontal plane and actually indicates the location of a magnetic pole over a vast area. You can circle the area around the geographic pole and always get a north reading with the compass. In short, there is no specific point, but an area where magnetic north or south is shown with a compass. Hollow Earth back. The questions we can't promise to answer right now. What about gravity? Center of gravity is in the approximate center of the 800-mile thick egg shell of the Earth, and works inside and outside of the planetary shell. The center of gravity is not at, or towards, the center of the Earth. What about the inner sun? What about it? What about the inner world? A huge topic, and an altogether perplexing reciprocal paradox. What about the outer world and the inner world together? WTF? Yes, we are going into Mindscapes of incredulities, I assure you. Can one see the openings when getting closer by land or air? No, but strange phenomena occur, like watery skies, the reflections along the lip of the Arctic hole where the ocean is reflected by the atmosphere. You would love to see it. Why haven't I heard about this before? I mean, seriously? Secrets are best getting out in the open. The woo-woo areas are best. I have most, if not all, the Hollow Earth classic books and websites. Have all these books about all these facts been suppressed, or banned, forgotten, ignored, ridiculed? Guess. What about Admiral Byrd's expeditions? Wasn't he in the newspapers? Excellent question. He will be focused on. He was indeed on radio and in newspapers, and commanded among other expeditions Operation High Jump and the Navy fleet that went after the disappeared German submarines and thousands of German people after World War II, and it was to the South Pole, if I remember correctly. What is science saying about this? Corporate, private or state science that gets loaded into textbooks for indoctrination cannot deal with this for reasons that are obvious. This science has the role that the high priests used to have when the earth was flat. Editor's note, and now it is too late to lose the weight you used to need to throw around Pink Floyd. Why don't I see this on Nat Geo, History, Discovery, and other high-quality corporate brainwashing networks? I was hoping you would ask. Can we see the polar openings from space? Absolutely, depending on your exact location and the weather patterns, your security clearance and the effectiveness of the selective memory delete process. After you have seen it, please look into this device now. Are satellite images of the polar regions censored? Of course not. Hey, things fly, buddy. Some at least ellipsis points, they fly north before winter, these dumb animals. Epilogue to the Hollow Earth introlog. Ellipsis points and the Earth used to be flat. Then, a solid ball, like a magma ball in space with a solid crust. When in fact it is a sphere which rings like a bell for weeks and months when struck by meteorites and earthquakes. Ellipsis points. The ultimate woo-woo. Part 2, The Schmittist Conspiracy. In the first part of this ultimate woo-woo series, the introduction to the revisited Hollow Earth theory, we sort of inexpire our way into the subject. There is a good reason for it. If we are not careful, we might fall inside the Hollow Earth, and that would be totally woo-woo. What compels me to take it easy with the coming avalanche of facts is the fact that a real deal Hollow Earth, taken and comprehended as a real thing, such as getting exposure on all TV stations at the same time worldwide, a real disclosure, would be about as shocking and unexpected as, well, for example, just to grab one out of the hot air, as shocking as the entire world cabal of psychopaths and sociopaths in central banking, government, military, pharmaceutical, monsantical, secretional, vacciniferous, pedophilical, savage, religious. In a word, the Schmittist establishment and its lesser-known controlling agents of the named societies, lodges, brotherhoods, banks and families would decide to commit collective suicide by throwing themselves behind a train. They would probably miss, too, or claim it later in a Masonic court. You just know it wouldn't happen. And among them, some would say you go first, I follow later. There you have another example of why you should never tune a wet piano. Better to let it dry thoroughly, give it a good retuning, and then play your final chord. Just why am I not writing about this in the usual way? Because this is too big of a subject to just file away under mere woo-woo. We need to dissolve some boundaries and rattle some cages. We solve the mystery like Inspector Clausen, Tilda's snap fingers, or something like it. Mr. Wu's holistic detective agency will handle this. I want to give this study about the Hollow Earth a different direction from the well-established presentations elsewhere of the many strange facts about it. We will get to that, but until then, we sprinkle the concepts and side issues around, before the hard facts start raining down hard. Now, where were we, Mr. Wu? For the continuation of this Hollow Earth series, we are going to up the ante. In the introduction, we agreed to saddle the horse the wrong way and gallop right into the crowd of naysayers, flat earthers and skeptics. This time around, we are going to burn those who back then burned the round earthers at the stake. We've got heat and there's going to be blisters. The gloves are off, and so we cheerfully tie the priests and Schmittists to a pole and set them on fire, all the while having to listen to their laments, wild claims of privilege, plain intense and rather late apologies and insistence on the peer review process. Exactly what we expected. Tilda, a Schmittist is a so-called scientist who polishes his shiz and shines his arse. This series will necessarily have to deal with Tilda regrettably huge side issues, some of which can be summed up as the ongoing suppression of facts and the applications of entirely woo-woo concepts to technology, such as electrogravitics or what you morons call free energy and flying saucers, all the while you thought the digital wristwatch, or the iPad, was a pretty neat idea. In other words, just why you feel that you are being treated like a dumb child. Sorry kids, nothing personal. These relevant side issues will have to be dealt with somewhere and somehow. In the case that the Hollow Earth turns out to be a complete and 100% proven bullshit idea, there is still this monster pink elephant standing around in your badly furnished apartment. And if it is not bullshit, then this side issue of mass mind control on all levels explains better than anything else just why you have a really hard time to accept the idea that the planets and the Earth are hollow as real, true and beautiful. A vintage German Flugscape with pedantic report labeled secret. It's not Audi, but Ursprung Technik it is. I am not saying that this is easy for me. It may not feel like it for you, but I do take the matter seriously, and I also try to never lose my sense of humor. Sooner or later I might have to decide for myself what the truth most likely seems to look like with this hollow earth thing. But then, if I make up my mind, I might be making up something. So far, I have not made up my mind and I can live with this lack of closure. I have really no problem